Hi, it's Dawn from Ninja Bunny Crochet. Today I have for us to do the Zig Zag Puff Stitch. This is a very pretty stitch, very full of texture, soft squishy stitch. This would make a lovely blanket, a scarf, a washcloth. You could do a lot with this stitch. I think it's a very pretty stitch. It is a yarn eater because you do have these puff stitches, but it's a really beautiful stitch. And I just totally love this stitch. I love using this in blankets and scarves, all kinds of things. So let's grab our hooks, grab our yarn, and let's start working on the Zig Zag Puff Stitch. Before I get started on today's tutorial, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and click on that subscribe button. It's right there, my little picture in the corner there, and you'll be automatically subscribed to my channel. And if you like content like this, go ahead and hit the like button, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of my tutorials when I upload them. So for today's tutorial, I'm going to be using this worsted weight yarn. It's Red Heart Super Saver in the color Baby Pink. And I'm going to be using my Clover Amour hook in an I 5.5 millimeter hook. It doesn't matter what size yarn you use or what size hook, as long as your hook and your yarn match. So we're going to go ahead and start off with a slip knot on our hook. The Zig Zag Puff Stitch, or sometimes it's called the Slanted Puff Stitch, is in a multiple of 3 plus 4. Now how I start this stitch is I start with a base row of half double crochet. The multiple is still the same though, it's 3 plus 4. And what that means is you start off chaining in sets of 3 until you get your project to the length that you would like it. Once you have it to the desired length in sets of 3, you're going to add 4 more chains to your base chain. For today's tutorial, I'm going to be doing a base chain of 25. So once you have your chain of 25, come on back and we'll start the Zig Zag Puff Stitch. Now that we have our chain of 25, we're going to start 4th chain from hook. The loop on your hook does not count as a stitch. So go 1, 2, 3, and 4, and this is the chain we're going to start our first half double crochet in. The chains that you skipped will count as a stitch. So put 1 half double crochet into each stitch all the way down the chain. I will meet back up with you at the end of the chain. I'm at the end of the chain. If you are working the same size base chain as I am with 25 chains, you will have 23 half double crochets. To start row 2, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Turn the work. This chain 3 is going to count as your first double crochet. So this stitch right here is worked. We're going to skip this next stitch right here, and we're going to work a double crochet in the next 2 stitches. So we're going to start in this stitch right here. So this stitch is worked, this one we're skipping, and we're starting in this one. I'm going to work 1 and then work a double crochet in the next stitch as well. So just like that. Now we're going to work our first puff stitch in the stitch that we just skipped in this stitch. So we're going to yarn over, reach back, go into that stitch that we skipped, make sure you get both loops, pull up a loop, yarn over, go back into that skipped stitch, pull up a loop, one more time, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all loops on your hook, And that is your first zigzag puff stitch or slanted puff stitch. We're going to skip this next stitch right here, go into the next stitch, and make a double crochet. Double crochet into the next stitch, and puff stitch into that stitch that you skipped. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up another loop, yarn over, and pull up another loop. Yarn over, go through all loops on your hook, and now you've just made your second zigzag puff stitch. Skip that next stitch, go into the next one with a double crochet. Double crochet into the next stitch, and again we're going to do one. I'll show you one more time how to do that puff stitch. Yarn over, go into that stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go into that skip stitch, excuse me. Pull up a loop, yarn over, go into that skip stitch, and pull up a loop. Yarn over, and pull through all loops on your hook. Skip that that next stitch, and work a double crochet, and work a double crochet into the next stitch. You're going to continue that, working all the way down to the end of the row. The very last stitch is going to be in that turning chain, and it's going to be one double crochet. I'll meet back up with you at the end of the row. I'm at the end of row 2. I'm going to work my last double crochet into the top of the turning chain. To start row 3, we're going to chain up 3, 1, 2, 3, which will count as a double crochet. So this stitch right here is worked. We're going to skip this next stitch and work our first double crochet into this next stitch right here. And our next stitch is going to go right into this one. It kind of looks like it's between the puff stitches. Then we're going to come back and work our puff stitch into this one right here. Make sure you get both loops. And now on our next puff stitch, this is the stitch right here that you're going to skip, and you're going to go to the next stitch, so it's kind of like in the middle of the puff stitch. So you're going to work your double crochet right here, your first one, then it looks like the next stitch looks like it's in between, and that's where you're going to work your next puff stitch. And then if you separate this part a little bit, you'll see that this is the next stitch that you work, the skipped stitch that you're working your puff stitch in. And you see how they work? One row goes this way, one row goes this way. That's where it gets that pretty zigzag from. Again, this is your skipped stitch. This is the next one that you work into. And then this is your second double crochet. Come back and work into that skipped stitch. So continue working the zigzag puff stitch all the way across the row, and I'll meet back up with you at the end of the row to show you how to end the row. I'm at the end of the row, and this last puff stitch can be a little bit tricky. So you have your 3 stitches right here, and you have your turning chain right here. So you want to be careful because this last stitch and your turning chain kind of mix in together a little bit. So this is your skip stitch right here, and then this is the first one where you want to put your double crochet in. And then here's your next stitch, and then you have your turning chain here, and it kind of looks like you don't have any stitches left, but that is your turning chain right there. You're going to do your puff stitch. Make sure you lift up on your hook too, because you don't want to get your puff stitches too tight. And then here, once you put your puff stitch on, you'll see how it kind of pulls that in. So then you want to grab this and do a double crochet on that end there to pull that side out, because that is your turning chain and that's where your last stitch will go. So here's what your work should be looking like. And as long as you make sure you get that double crochet in the end there, it should keep your sides nice and straight. And you should have the same number of puff stitches in each row. So to start row 4, all you're going to do is repeat row 2. Let's just chain 3, 1, 2, 3, turn the work, skip this stitch is already worked, skip the first stitch, go to the middle stitch or the second stitch with a double crochet, and that one that looks like it's in between is where your second double crochet goes. And you go back to that skipped stitch and work your puff stitch diagonally across the 2 double crochets. Just like that. So I'm going to put a couple more rows on, and then I'll come back and show you how to do the last row here. I've put a couple of rows on, and once you've reached the desired width of your project, or length depending on which way you're working your project, for the last row, so that your first row and your last row will match, all you do is chain 2, turn the work, that chain 2 will count as a stitch, and then just put 1 half double crochet into each stitch across. You should have the same stitch count as you did in the beginning. So for this swatch, it'll be 23 half double crochet. And it shouldn't take too long here just to finish this off, so I should be able to do it right on camera for you. Split the yarn there a little bit. Be careful not to split your yarn. Okay. And don't forget your turning chain as well, because that counts as a stitch. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Then you can just go ahead and fasten off. And there you have it. So if you like this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to ring that bell so you won't miss any of my tutorials. Thanks for watching, and happy crocheting! Bye-bye!